Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to today's session. I'm still your facilitator, Justus, and I'll be taking you through building visuals with Power BI. So today we are going to look at an intro session to building visuals with Power BI. So with today's session, we are not going to dive deep into data cleaning or using DAX or anything. We are just going to see how Power BI can create beautiful reports and dashboards and then visuals. And then from subsequent lessons, we will look at how to clean data and then the rest. I'm sure by now we all have our Power BI open. So we are going to create a new report and then we will use that to create our visuals. The data I'm going to use will come along with the pre-recorded video, so you shouldn't worry. Alright, so go to new and then let's launch our Power BI dashboard. So today we are just going to look at the report view and how we are going to create visuals from the report view. Alright, so let's import our data, but before we import our data, let's save our file. So to save a file in Power BI, we know save and save as. So we are going to use save as. Alright, so I'll click on save as, and then if you are following my mouse, you move to browse this device. So we want to go into the file directory of the device and see where we are going to save it. So within our files directory, I have a folder called sales. So I'm using my folder from my desktop called sales, and then I'll name it maybe sales dashboard. All right, and then we are using the Power BI Exchange extension. So this is what we are using, the PBIX, that's Power BI Exchange, that's what we are using. All right, so we hit on save, and then we check here, change it from untitled to the newly name we have given to the file. All right, now let's look at how am I going to bring my data into Power BI. Unlike Excel, that you have to open your data as a spreadsheet or as how do you call it, a page. How do you even call it in Excel? Well, those of you who do Excel, I'm sure you know how you import it, but then your data has to be part of your workbook. So yes, a worksheet. Yeah, I just remembered, a worksheet. It has to be part of your workbook, but then with Power BI you have to connect to your data source. We'll talk more about that later, since today's lesson is just based on showing you how cool Power BI is. All right, so we are going to look at get data. The data I'm going to use is a CSV file, so I click on the CSV file. Now within my sales where I created a file, there's a folder called data. So I'm going to use the supermarket sales, and then you select it and you open. Now as you click on it, it's now connecting to the data source, right? But then initially, if we were going to transform the data, we would have moved to um, transform data, but since we won't be using now, we will be going to just load the data as it is. All right, so now let's just load the data. Transforming will take us to the Power Query data, but then we are not going to transform the data. So let's just load the data. So the moment I load my data, we are expecting it to come to our data pane. Yeah, so there are pending changes. It loads and then it adds my data to my data pane here. So this is my data pane. Let's wait for the data to appear. All right, so my data has been loaded. Just waiting for it to come to the data pane, then I'll start working with it. Yes, so anytime you import a data in Power BI, it is seen as a table, which means you can select each column and work with a column. Right, so that's how Power BI works, and that's how Power BI does it. When I expand this table, I see all columns that I have in the data. All right, so we are just going to today look at how we can use Power BI to create some cool visuals like cards. We call them KPI cards, and we use them for that key business metrics and then key processes indicators, something like that. What we use them for. All right, so our first one will be a card. Now we cards are mostly used for elements with, let's say, something like single values. So I need something with just a single value. So I'll need maybe price, the rating, the quantity. That's what we use cards for. So my first one, I have two ways of creating a card. It's either I come here to my insert tab and insert a graph, or I come to my home and access it, or I have my build pane here. This depends on the type of Power BI and then the version you are using. Okay, so it's just going to be a bit different from my Power BI tool. But if you're using the latest version of Power BI, you are sure to get whatever I'm using here. All right, so let's do our first one, which is a card. All right, so I'll be using the pane from up here, and then from here we see something like gauge, cards, and KPI. So I'll just select a card, right? So I come in and then select a card. The moment I select a card, you see it comes here. There's nothing on the card, so you can't really see anything. Now what do I want the card to show? So I said I want the card to show something like um, maybe total unit price, something like that. The data has not been transformed. We'll be doing table transformations and all those things in the Power Query editor. But now we are just using the data as it is. So I select unit price. So we have ways of adding data to cards as well. The first way is just checking the column or that column you are going to use. And then you see automatically the card has updated. So that sum of unit price. The second way is add data. So the moment you go to add data, it just pops up your table and then you select unit price, and it gives you, okay, so it just gives you what do you want. I want unit price. So this one, it just calculates the total unit price of whatever you're having and just give you sum of unit price. I believe we are getting it to this point. All right, so we have our card ready. Now let's come to how do we make this card so nice. People there with the first tutorials we saw from the introduction, we saw something like nice cards and anything. So how do we get these things working? And that is the problem. So sometimes we come here, add or remove visual elements. Then this one is visual data. So how do we add elements to the card or make the card so beautiful? We come here, you see something called format. Now when I click on format, there's a pane here that has changed. So with this properties here, this can help us just style the card, make it colorful, change the colors and everything. So you can come here and say that, okay, let me change the height to something like 200 and see what happens. So I can just either increase or decrease the height, and then I work with it. Okay, and then we come to background. Do you want to add a background to your card? Well, if you want a background to your card, you just select a color. Maybe I want a color blue. All right, so that one has been checked. And then how transparent do you want your card to be? If you want it to be 100% transparent, you just pick the color of the background. And then visual borders are more like how round do you want your card to be. So I can just select visual borders to be there, and then I can just say, oh, don't give me any color, maybe something like give my visuals with the borders like white, and then the rounds I can say that's okay, round it maybe something like 20 pixels, and let's see what happens to the card. Yeah, so this is one example. You can just change the text beneath it, just double click on the text, and then maybe total unit price, so you can just highlight on the text and what you want to do with it. Okay, so since my version here is not working, but then we can always change it from the callout values. So we can come here, title, I can just say add title, then I change things from there. I can come here, titles. How do I want my title to be? So I don't want any of these things. I just want the call out value. That is the money we are seeing there. Maybe I want something like the Sego UI, the color changes to Sego UI. Maybe I want to make it bold, say it boldens it, and then the display in it is more like how do you want us to display it? Maybe you want to display it in thousands, in millions, in billions, whatever you do. You say thousand is to in a K, to change to K, and then maybe you want it in millions, to change to million. But mostly I recommend leaving it at auto for Power BI to determine the unit you want it to appear. So if it's too long and you want the text to wrap, you can say wrap the text, and then you can say okay, don't wrap, and then you come to the category label. You can say that, oh, I don't want any category label, so there's the category what we were trying to do. I can say, oh, okay, I want the category to be there, I want category label to be there, but then I want Sego UI. Okay, take the same font and shape, and then I can come back to the data, for instance, like this. And then if I want to change that sum of, I can just click on this one and say that, okay, total minute price, just hit enter, and then it changes. So we can use just this one card to create countless number of cards. That's one way of visualization in Power BI. So if you want to just make a duplicate of it, Control C, and then paste, and then we start working with it. So most dashboards, you see them with their KPIs on top of it. Yes, so this is actually how it is done. So I'm sure this introduces us to cards and how to use cards. The next one will be something like a bar chart. So how do we do a bar chart? But we can actually change this one here. If you want to change the type of data on it, you can just come into that. I don't want unit price on this one, but I want something like which one do I want? Which one do I want? I want rating, and then I see that total rating. But then these things we are doing, you'll be using the calculated tax measures to actually do the totals and then their averages and all those things. We won't be letting Power BI do it implicitly for us. That will be havoc in instances where we want to change some of the data points. Okay, so this one we can look at add data. Let's look at the numerical ones. We've looked at rating. Let's look at total quantity. I can come here, just double click in it and write total quantity. Okay, press enter. You are done. I think that's all the numerical ones, so we can just get rid of this one and then just arrange the KPI cards. Okay, so this is it with cards. Maybe let's say with your canvas, sometimes you want to change your canvas background. Mine, for instance, mostly I use image to change it, so I can just come here, sales. I think I have an image here, and just change the canvas color. Well, it's not actually appearing because of transparency, so I can see that, make it a bit transparent, come down, and then the fit, I just say that just fill, and we are done. We have our background. You can also use colors. You can just decrease everything to just come down a bit, and we see how this thing is just looking nice here. Yeah, and then with the cards we can actually change the colors of their subcategory, the category label. We can change their colors. Can come here to that one because it's black. Let's say like this one white, category label, just change them to white. So this is actually some ways of doing things in Power BI and the rest. All right, so let's look at the next chart, maybe something like a bar chart. So you have a categorical column, you want to create something like a bar chart. So I can come to my charts and you see line and area, you see bar and column charts. So maybe I want a clustered column. This one is a stacked column. What do I want? These are column charts. Okay, mine is not having a bar chart here. I think I'll go with one of the column charts. Now let's use that. All right. Now with a stacked, let's see something here. So we have what we want on the x-axis, what we want on the y-axis. So on the x-axis, maybe I want let's go to our data and start dragging some columns. Maybe the other way of adding visuals. So my x-axis, I want something like gender. So my x-axis have gender. Okay, and then maybe on my y-axis I want genders and how much they are given. So genders and then their quantity. So I come to my y-axis, I see that quantity, and then my legend, because I want it stacked, I want to see something like, okay, payment. Then I drag this thing here, payment, so we can see genders and then the type of payment methods they use. So that's all. So to edit this or change it to something like what we had up there, all you have to do is come and click on the tooltip here. So format, it brings you to the format, and maybe let's start with the x-axis. The x-axis, I think it's cool. Yeah, I think it's cool. So we can just go to size and style, background. We want our background to actually exhibit the same color as we are using. Transparency, you can see that's okay. Increase it a bit to fit whatever we were using. What else can we do? So we can actually style the headings, whatever we want. So title, consider come to my title. My title should be in the middle, and then what do I want as my title? Sum of quantity by order. So I want to look at maybe gender, comma, quantity, purchase, and payment method, because that's actually what we are doing. Click enter. You can change the color. You can see that okay, we are using the Sego UI, so you can see that. Let's use the Sego UI. Sego UI. Make it white. Oh, white is not actually a good choice. But then I think we can just play around the colors. Forgive me for my colors. I'm not doing an official UI designer here, so okay. Oh, that's bad. Alright, let's select something like this. I think this is okay. So we can work on the X and Y axis. So subtitle, we don't need a subtitle. Divider, spacing. Let's work on our X axis. So with our X axis, we can start by doing something like, let's change the color of the X axis to maybe something like a white, and change this to something like a white. And okay, so values. So we are done with our x-axis, the value. The x-axis, the title. So what is the title of our x-axis? So it has auto. Well, it's good because it's just gender. We can just change this one to Sego UI. Make the color white. It's just changing. So we can just do the same thing, whatever we did to the y-axis. Oh, so we want our values to be white, and then we want our display unit. Should it be in thousand? Let's just leave it to Power BI to do it. And then we come to look at the title, sum of quantity. We don't want to look at sum of quantity. We want something like total quantity. Then we change the color to Right. Well, yeah, I think this cool. So let's say an example of, let's say you want a budget, and then one thing we can add is something like a slicer, something to actually draw up and down of whatever you want to do. So if you want to add a slicer, just come down here. So we have slices. Just add your slicer. How do you want to slice this? So maybe I'm sure from your Excel presentations you saw something like slices. So let's add data. So we want to look at branches. So each branch, we want to look at the branch, their total unit price, their total ratings, and the quantity. So that's how in the real world you are going to see. So in the real world you are going to see markets offering you like as an HR or something like a manager. This is what I want to see. I want to see how my branches are doing. So I need a slicer. So let me, without adding formatting to slices, you see if I click on any of the slices, it just responds automatically. Or like Excel and spreadsheets where you have to configure them manually. With Power BI, you just leave it to Power BI to do it. It does it unless you stop it. You get it? So if I look at my first branch, so I can see how much my first branch is getting. Let's look at our last branch. So our last branch, we have males and females. We have the kind of payment methods they are all using. So even with the cards, you can just come to the cards and then um, try as much as possible to make some changes to the cards. So let's come to our card. We have our card selected. Do we need a background? Yes. So let's change our background color to the normal color we are using. Increase the transparency small. Oh, looks like it's it's more transparent. Okay. Can add some visual borders to it. Maybe we want the border to be white and round it to something like we're using, I think 20. 20 is okay. No, 20 is too much. Let's make it 10 unless we want it to be so round. Wow. Okay, let's take to 15. 15 I think will be okay. Okay, 15 is okay. And then let's keep up with our formatting. So we have the slicer settings. This is where you choose the type of slicing you want. So maybe I want a drop down slicer. So I can say, okay, maybe I want a drop down. So that if I select it, it just drops. So with drop downs, I can just say, okay, let me just bring it here. The moment I bring it down, okay, so I want city here. And then it responds. So yeah, this actually ends a bit of what we can actually do with Power BI. We'll go deep into Power BI as we actually proceed. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.